The Cursed Holy Sword breaks a pattern in the One Piece movies that I've seen. I think this one is worse than the previous one. This is my review of the 5th One Piece movie, which premiered on March 6, 2004, the same week that in the anime, Eneru started up Death Pia, and in the manga, Zoro and Sanji won the second round of the Davy Back fight. This movie is very clearly inspired by what was happening in the anime at the same time, but shifts its focus to make Zoro the core of the story. I thought that was going to be a really interesting idea. Definitely a unique take, but I don't think that it worked. So let's start this discussion from the very beginning. A very good place to start. There is a bloody, violent pirate raid in the night. A wounded man in a temple grabs hold of a sealed away sword and begins slicing the pirates in half. Cut to the title. I think that's probably the best start of any of these movies so far. There is a lot to like about this movie, and the darker tone is definitely one of those things. Then we shift over to the Straw Hats, and in proper movie form, the first thing we see is Nami proclaiming her knowledge about the 7-star sword, which she knows about because treasure. The last movie stepped away from this setup, but that was the only one in 5, so I guess it was the exception and not the new norm. Then Robin comes in to provide some more lore on this sword. The crew remains the same from the previous movie, and yet the timeline is harder to make sense out of. I know these movies aren't canon, but I like trying to see if they could fit. Even though this movie is the first one that feels like a direct follow-up from the previous, with the Marines from Dead End Adventure continuing to chase the Straw Hats, things don't really add up. The previous movie could have taken place between Alabasta and Jaya, and this one could have too, except they added in a couple of key details that make that highly unlikely, such as Luffy knowing about his raised bounty of 100 million berries. The only logical place this could really fit in now is between Skypiea and Water 7, but that doesn't really feel right either. The Mary is relatively intact, and Nami is scheming for money, which likely means they don't have their Shandian gold. But none of this matters, and once again, I've ranted about it for too long. The biggest strength of this movie is the visuals. Early on, there is a damn good aerial shot of the Mary docked at a harbor, and the water glistening around it looked fantastic. I think this is the best looking movie so far by a mile. There are no super glossy character models either, the coloring is great with awesome attention to detail, and even the CGI that's used isn't egregiously obvious. It's mostly used to give the sensation of camera movement and occasionally for some background shots. Definitely an improvement from the previous movie, and I'm glad to see the movie-specific experimentation had continued. Let's get into the actual story. Zoro is found by his childhood friend Saga, who is now Marine with the cursed sword, and he's the same quite violent man from the beginning of the movie. Zoro vanishes, and the crew goes to look for him and splits up. The first half of this movie is split into 3 parts. Luffy and Usopp getting lost on the island, Zoro working under Saga, and everyone else encountering these villagers who are exposition maniacs. The setting of this movie is very clearly inspired by Skypiea. It has an overgrown forest with some ancient ruins, and even the more tribal fashion of the villagers is in line with the Shandian people. Even Usopp's Sky Rider is clearly derivative of the grappling hook. The first of these 3 plots to intersect comes when Zoro arrives with Saga's men to absolutely annihilate these villagers in order to collect some magic orbs. Yes, it's all as sloppy and nonsensical as it sounds, and I want to get back to that. But first, there is a Zoro versus Sanji fight. I was not expecting to see that, and it was a cool moment that I wish went on for a bit more. Sanji is protecting the villagers from Zoro, and they only fight for about 30 seconds before Sanji is completely outclassed. I don't think that's how this would actually go down. Not to say Zoro wouldn't win, but Sanji loses like a punk. Then Zoro goes back to Saga with the orbs, and we find out that Zoro and Saga made a promise to each other when they were young. That Zoro becomes the strongest swordsman, and Saga masters the Sword of Justice. Whatever that means. Saga was presumed dead, and Zoro moved on with his life, but now Saga tells Luffy that Zoro isn't part of the Straw Hats anymore. And despite Luffy's protests that he doesn't believe it, that does appear to be the case, and that's something else I want to talk about in a bit. The vast majority of this movie is unnecessarily complicated, so I'm not even gonna bother making you suffer through it. There's a legend about the cursed sword involving priestesses, gods, warring brothers, and the power of darkness that threatens to destroy the world. Blah blah blah. Essentially, Saga is corrupted by the literal magic of this cursed sword, and he wants to use it to become the strongest because now he believes strength is justice. The rest of the characters do some magic artifact nonsense, while Zoro pieces together his friend isn't the same man he knew and tries to fight him, which doesn't go well at first, so Saga then challenges Luffy. Luffy gets some good blows in, but then Zoro comes back in for the final round against the powered up Saga and delivers the final strike. The movie ends with everyone on the island living happily as the Mary sails off with the newfound companionship of a hippo rhino who wants to fuck it. Yep, you heard that right. So let's break a couple things down. First, the pros. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, the visuals are the biggest strength for this movie. How stylized the night sky looks with the blood moon is absolutely fantastic. The movie is able to bring some samurai feel to the screen with how things are framed, shadowed, and colored. It's excellent. I like that Zoro actually gets to beat the main villain. For a second there, it looked like Luffy was gonna do it, which would have been pretty lame, but that doesn't happen, and Zoro does get a wrap up to his arc. Now the cons. This movie makes Zoro look like a total ass. He straight up leaves the crew, and then when he encounters them again, he's attacking civilians, and he doesn't even explain anything to them. He treats the crew like total crap, and at first, I thought he had to be mind controlled by the curse or something, but no, that's just how he treated them. He was a fucking dick, and he never even apologized by the end. If this movie was actually canon, I straight up wouldn't want Zoro and the crew anymore. Luffy told Saga that Zoro wasn't gonna leave his crew, and that's obviously what should have happened, but we are shown explicitly that Zoro did leave Luffy's crew, and there was no secret plan or hint he was telling Saga only what he wanted to hear. He was fully just gonna stick with them because of their dumb childhood promise that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, wield the sword of justice, pal. You fucking prick. All of this could have been forgiven if Zoro seemed at all regretful, but at the end, he just sulks on the Mary and tells everyone to leave him alone. What an asshole. Sorry, but I've been bottling that up for a while now. Other cons, I thought the straight up magic didn't fit the series. Ancient curses, magical artifacts, and dark possessions all felt out of place to me. Generally, I thought the backstory on the curse was overly complicated and way too over the top. A threat to the whole world felt way too massive for this weird side story. And also, I don't think Saga's transformation form looked that interesting. If you insist on doing a big movie transformation villain, I think it should pop a little bit more, like how Chopper's Kingdom on the Island of Strange Animals did it. I'm being a little harsh, but once the floodgates are opened, it's hard to stop. I was expecting this movie to be my favorite of the first 5. I've thought every other movie was better than the previous, and the idea of Zoro taking center stage in a darker movie sounded really appealing to me. I'm not sure how the fanbase feels about any of these movies, but I have a strong suspicion this one might have some love and support, and I can get why. I wanted to like this movie too, but something just didn't click for me. At the end of the day, on the scale of out of canon early 2000s anime movies, sadly, I think One Piece The Cursed Holy Sword is only a 7. Oh wait, this is the first movie without an original child character, so hey, that's something. Let's bump this baby up to a 7.5. And that's about that. 5 movies reviewed in 5 days, but the fun doesn't stop. Coming this Wednesday is my first video on Whole Cake Island, and then on Friday, I have a video planned with a certain YouTuber that I think you might enjoy. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and consider subscribing, because I'm only getting started. Thanks for watching, take care of yourselves, and until the next time, I'll shut up.